Alright, so for my sixth video reaction, we listened to Margaret Vestager, I believe is how you say her name, and her speech is on the new age of corporate monopolies. Sorry, I gotta switch something. There we go. And so she starts off by referring to after World War II in 1957, when the European Union started, and how all of Europe was in shambles because of the war. The countries were divided, the countries were torn, and how democracy was beginning to rule a lot of the countries again. And I think this is a pretty important. I think it's pretty important that she referenced that, because it kind of goes hand in hand with democracy of competition and monopolies, and how what she leads to talk about. But at the time, there was countries pushing communism and socialism into these countries, and competition's a big portion of the free market. So she says, why do we need rules on competition? And she says that sometimes competition can be inconvenient because the race for the best is never over. So these companies never feel like they can stop. They feel like they have to constantly push and push and push to actually stay in a competing level with other countries, companies. And it forms a form of greed and fear with companies, because they fear being overtaken by other countries, or companies. And the greed's caused when they're at the top and they feel comfortable, and they're getting kind of cocky, so they know that they can control the market as Monopoly would. And so once these companies and these people in these companies feel that they have control and the power, and the power is caused by the greed, they are reluctant to give it back. So they push even harder to make the market prices cheaper, or pretty much just control the entire market, and completely barring other companies from joining in on the market. And that forms a monopoly, which is the key thing that she's talking about. Monopolies can destroy a single market. Like, a section of a overall market can be completely controlled by one company, and that monopoly makes it impossible for other companies to start, which hurts the overall market. So then she goes on and says, everyday people are involved in the markets, and if one company dominates a single market, it can take a negative effect on the consumer, and it destroys different things like product variation, consumer choice, because they're forced to pay these ridiculously high prices for one product, because the company that's in control of the market, the monopoly, has complete control, so they can do whatever they want, essentially. Because if another company joins the market, they can just drop their prices down, put the other company out of business, and there you go. That's the aspect of why it can have a negative effect on the consumer, because pretty much the consumer can't win. But another thing she mentioned was product variation, and I know I already said that, but without product variation, consumers are locked into buying only from that company, and this forms another negative aspect to competition. So technology can create new challenges and new forms of trust, almost. Like, you can see through like rating sites, like I think it's Indeed, where you can go on and you can find a job, but you can also look at like what people say about the CEO and different things like that. It might not be Indeed, but there's plenty of sites like Indeed that do things like that give people the ability to rate the actual companies themselves, and this can form new trusts if people are saying positive things. But technology overall, things can be done so much more efficiently now. It can almost take a negative effect at times. So competition should make the market work for everyone. So this kind of deals with the product variation. If a market's properly functioning, there's multiple businesses involved in the market, then it's easy for someone to go out and choose between all the different things. They can find exactly what they want. There might be similar products offered by other companies, different prices, whatever it may be, but it gives a wider variety of choice to the consumer, and I think that's a very positive thing. So the market needs to work for everyone. I agree with the speaker on that point. And then she concludes what she says by saying fair competition has a large role to build the trust of the consumer, and that it starts with enforcing the rules. So when a country doesn't enforce the rules and there's a monopoly formed, it causes, again, this problem within the one market. One company has control over everything, which leads to all those negative side effects, and that's a problem. And so if fair competition is happening and the laws are being enforced, it can build the trust of the consumer, of the companies, and of each other, and of everything. I think it's an overall positive thing. So outside of that, how do I think this impacts business law? Well, I know in the United States there's a lot of laws that control monopolies, and companies like Disney have gotten in trouble, I think in 1970, I want to say, for monopolies and for forming a monopoly, and they got fined a lot of money and all sorts of different things. And I think with all the purchases that Disney's been making, like Fox and Star Wars and all the different aspects, Marvel, whatever it may be, they're going to form another monopoly and destroy other companies from making movies, because Disney has millions, billions of dollars to make the best movies available. And other companies might not be able to do that, but they can still make a good movie. But if they're not going to be as good as Disney's movies, and Disney just keeps buying each company, then all of a sudden we're going to have another monopoly, whether that be in the movie industry, TV show, whatever industry that they buy all these companies out in. So far it's been movie and TV show making industry. So I think that's something to look out for in the coming future. So what I'm doing after school, I've mentioned this in past videos, is I'm starting my own company, and it's a pretty high competition area. But for the most part, it's a healthy type of competition in the area where I'm from. I'm from Mason, Ohio. I'm going to start a lawn care, landscape business, and there's a lot of different companies. There's hundreds of companies in the area. Cincinnati's full of people who do not like to cut their own grass or do their lawn landscaping or any form of lawn care, so there's a huge market for it. So I think that kind of helps, because all these little guy companies can go out and make a good sum of money and not really impact the big companies. The big companies over the last 5 years have actually mostly all gotten in trouble for some kind of fraud, white collar crime, anything that it may be. They've all kind of gotten in trouble for different things like this. So I think for me, I'll have to make sure that I'm not price gouging if I get bigger, and just make sure that I'm creating fair competition. I'm going to bid on jobs. I'm not going to get every job, whether that be on pricing or they just wanted to go a different direction. So I think that's something that I have to consider here in the coming future. Thanks.